All right, I'll let people in as I see them here, but it's being recorded for everyone to view, later today or this week. However, okay, so here's what's going to happen today, guys. I've got a special guest, Mr. Matt Spanke here today, who I've known for quite some time. And I'm going to ask Matt some questions here, and he's going to share a lot of knowledge pertaining to his success over the 20 plus years of being in recruiting and staffing. So I'm really excited about that. And then Matt's got about 30 minutes. So after that, we will let Matt go. And then I'm going to dive into some strategies for finding new recruiting clients and candidates as well. So that's kind of how the agenda will go today. So thanks everyone for being. And without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Matt real quick. So Matt is the co-founder of SRG Government Services. He directs business operations focused on clients in niche industries, such as Department of Defense and life sciences. With more than 20 years of experience in recruiting and management fields, Matt brings leadership and solid track record of growing annual revenue and increasing sales. He started the company with a $20,000 loan from his parents and now has 45 internal employees and 300 contractors on billing in 32 states. Pretty impressive. So, Matt, good morning.
Morning, everybody. It's good to be here.
Good to have you. So I want to start with a question that I think is going to help a lot of us here. There are a lot of people who are pretty new to recruiting, just starting out, and I always like asking this question. So Matt, if you had to start a recruiting business tomorrow, what would you do? Like, what would your game plan be would you go after clients? Would you go after candidates? How would you approach that?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. So I think the first thing I would do is I would take the mindset of, I would begin with the end in mind. In other words, what I mean by that is, what am I trying to accomplish? When am I trying to accomplish it by? And then I would also take a look at what specific market that I would want to really, really focus on. I think it's a bad thing in the recruiting industry, because there's so many different industries that you can focus on, is if you're trying to be everything to everybody. So pick your market. But I think the most important thing, man, is, and it's absolutely free, is just work harder than everybody else that you've ever met, because working hard and keeping a good attitude is absolutely free.
Absolutely. So Matt, kind of give us the Reader's Digest version of your history with recruiting. Like, how did you get involved in it? Where did you start, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I graduated college in 1995, and for 4 years out of school, I worked for a big national recruiting firm called Aerotech, or Allegis Group, or Tech Systems. You guys might have heard of them before. So I was 27 years old and was young enough and dumb enough and thought that I could take over the world. So my business partner and I branched off from Aerotech, and he went and he borrowed 10 grand from his parents. I borrowed 10 grand from my parents. We moved from Orlando to St. Pete because we had to be more than 90 miles away, because Aerotech was really sue happy back then. And we opened up a company, and we figured that we had money for around 90 days. That's without us getting paid, right? That 20 grand. So it went to, prepaying the rent. We got one computer and 2 phones because we couldn't afford the second computer. And we broke our first account on the 84th day. And that was 23 and a half years ago. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's kind of where we came from. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So if I recall, you were really heavy on engineering skill sets. That was kind of your niche, right?
Yeah. So my side of the business is Department of Defense, IT, and engineering. So a lot of the top secret clearance, cybersecurity guys, intel folks, the people that are sitting in the dark rooms with 15 monitors that are keeping us safe, that have, the top secret clearances with polygraphs and all that. So that's my side of the business. And then Britt's side of the business is life science and clinical trials side of it. So it's commercial work, but scientists, chemists, formulators, things like that. So we decided on these niche verticals, right? Because we didn't want to be everything to everybody. Wanted to be really good at 2 or 3 different things. So we figured that was good, because he was classically trained at Aerotech in the science, and I was more on the DoD side. So we had 4 years of experience on that. So we decided to run with it, because we felt like with earns and economies and things like that, we figured, there's always going to be world conflict, and there's always going to be sick people. So it didn't make us completely insulated, but it really did help us. We actually grew by 180% in the 08-09 market when the housing crashed, because they still needed national security, and people were still in clinical trials to try to fight cancer. So
wow. Yeah. So kind of going back to what you were saying is it's important to find your niche, obviously, and you don't want to be the jack of all trades in recruiting. But what about people out there that don't really have a niche, but they want to start a recruiting business? Like, in your opinion, how important is it to understand what your niche is before you start a recruiting business? Or do you feel like, hey, just jump into it, you'll figure it out, start doing activity every day, start making the calls, do the LinkedIn engagement, et cetera? Like, what's your opinion behind it?
Yeah. So when I was 27, I would have said the second one you just said, just, pick a building, right? And go in and just door knock every single one of them. And whoever gives you business, that's kind of, you're going to gravitate to that. And that's still a viable way to do it, right? It's a little haphazard, but that's a way to do it. But now that I'm 50 and looking back on it, I think it would behoove you to do some market research, right? So, everybody knows that what is it, 60% of commercial staffing in the IT industry, right? So everybody wants to jump into IT, but they have to understand it's harder to penetrate because there's already a ton of firms that are doing that exact same thing. Or you could do something, really niche, like a life science, chemists and scientists and everything. It's only maybe 8% of the market, but there's less firms doing it. So you have to figure out, what skill sets do you like selling? What skill sets do you understand? And then once you do that, hey, I'm going to try to call on, IBM and Oracle because they have the skill sets I want to do and see if that works, right? So it's beginning with the end in mind. So I would do the research and then pick an industry that you feel comfortable with, that you can learn and you can talk the talk, and then go with it and be really good at it.
Love it. So Matt, as long as I've known you, you've been like a rock star on the client side. I know that's really your thing, like biz dev and cultivating strong relationships with a lot of these hiring managers. So in the spirit of that, like, in your opinion, what creates a superior client recruiter relationship? And how do you cultivate that relationship? Yeah.
For sure, man. So I think there's two trains of thought on the business development side of it, right? So there's the folks that, feel like, they need to make 80 calls a day, that they just need to ground and pound and just absolutely kill it. And if you're on the phone for more than 45 seconds, that's just too long. You need to get out and put a rod back in the water. You need to pull it out, put the rod back in the water, right? So my train of thought on that is that if I can have a good conversation and I'm getting to know somebody 40 times a day instead of, throwing it out 80 times a day, not really giving a shit, what you're even talking about with that person, right? Hey, can you give me business? Okay, no, click. Hey, can you give me business? No, click. I take a true interest in developing the relationship with that individual. Ask them questions outside of work, find out what they like to do, and then do out of office contacts doing that with them. When I got married, even though the marriage didn't work out, the business did. So that's good news, right, everybody? There was 5 or 6 clients that were at my wedding, because, they were just, truly good friends. I think that, taking the time, remembering what you talked about, the next time you have a conversation with that person, say, hey, I know you mentioned last month that Molly got the coronavirus. How's she doing? I've been thinking about her. Show your personality and just be real and don't be fake, right? Because the reality of it is, folks, is that, there's multiple recruiting companies out there, right? I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. So the companies, everybody uses recruiters, right? There's a lot of us. So people genuinely use the folks that they enjoy hanging out with, that know what they're talking about, and they give them a fair price, and they don't try to get rich off of one guy. So, at the end of the day, if you can accomplish that, I think that you've already beat the competition, right? So, making 80 calls a day and two of them are meaningful, or is it 40 calls a day and 38 of them are meaningful? I would definitely take the latter every single time because it's proved to be beneficial for us, at least.
Man, that's gold. Hey, I keep getting a chime on this call. If that's you, can you go ahead and mute your side, please? Because it's been a little distracting at times. Yeah, Matt, thanks. So Matt, how many sales executives do you have right now that are, is your model similar to the Aerotech model? Are you dividing up recruiting and sales?
Yes. So, for the first, many years, it was Britt and I were the BD guys, right? We were also the admin. We were also the accounting clerk. We were also the payroll guy, you know what I mean? But, as the company has matured and grown over time, we now have 9 we call them AEs, account executives, but they're essentially they're business development folks or salespeople. So we've got 9 of those, and then Britt and I are kind of out of that now. So we're kind of just steering them. And then they all have, so they either have, 2 or 3, in some cases 4 or 5 recruiters that work underneath them in a triangle. So they've got the AE up here that makes, 8% commission on everything they bring in. And then you have the 2 recruiters or 3 or 4 recruiters down here at the bottom of the triangle, and they make salary and they make 4% of whatever they bring in. So the career pathing is something that we worked really hard on. But we have a senior recruiter that kind of like manages the accounts that the AE has brought in. And then we have the junior recruiters that work underneath that work really hard on filling the recs, and they're trying to get good at becoming a recruiter. And then the AE has no place to hide, right? So that's like the whole business model. So, if the AE, which is the hunter, is saying that, well, I didn't break an account this month because I've been managing my 14 accounts and it's just too much work. So what we've done is we've kind of like flipped the switch on that a little bit. So the senior recruiter that's trying to get promoted to become an AE is managing a lot of the relationships and is learning how to, take the true interest in the clients, and is doing some of the out of office contacts and playing golf and drinking beer with these folks, right? Because eventually they want to aspire to make 8% and they go out and hunt. So we've got the hunter on top that they have to hunt, we'll say 90% of the time. It's never going to be a perfect world. And then you have a senior recruiter that does a lot of the account management, relationship development, is still a producing role because they have a spread that they have to get. And then you have the 2 junior recruiters underneath them that are fairly new, within 6 months to a year, that are still learning the business, that eventually wants to become a senior recruiter, and that senior recruiter wants to become an AE. We recently promoted 2 of our senior AEs to directors. So now they're in charge of, it's kind of like a national account manager during the old Aerotech days, right? So they're over like a territory now of salespeople. So the career pathing is there. We're finally at that point. So, we over the last 3 or 4 years, Britt and I have really tried hard to become more autonomous. So what that means is, if I left for 3 weeks and I came back, the company would still be going up and to the right. They don't need me to continue to make the wheel churn. So that's kind of where we are in our maturity.
That's awesome. That's a good example of scaling internally.
Yep.
Tell me, like, what, in your eyes, what is the perfect day for one of your AEs? Like, what's ideal activity? What do you expect? What's your accountability for that person? Walk me through it Monday through Friday, if you would.
Sure. So Mondays, we have them, we call it a phone day. So they're pounding the pavement, and their goal is to get meetings all day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from the calls that they made on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So, the days of COVID and a lot of these clients aren't local. If it's not a face-to-face, it's a Teams call or a Zoom call. So they're selling all day on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then of course documenting into the system before they go home, which we all know that salespeople are great documenters. And then on Friday, it's follow-up documentation from the last 3 days of meetings, getting a game plan for next week, and then in the afternoon, you're starting your calls to try to line up Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of the following week. So your Monday isn't as shitty as it would have been if you hadn't started doing it on Friday.
Right. And so you guys are still sticking to good old cold calling. Like, you're finding you're getting results with that, and they're able to set up appointments. Is that really what you're practicing?
Not necessarily. So there is a lot of that, right? But in a perfect world, 80% of those calls are warm, right? So it's your buddy at khaki, you call him up and say, hey bro, I'm trying to get into Booz Allen Hamilton. I know that Sally Sweetlips is the program manager, but she won't take my call. I know you're linked in with her. Do you know her? And he says, oh yeah, I know Sally. We've played golf a couple times or whatever. And I'm like, hey man, I've known you for 3 years. Is there any way you can do like a virtual intro just on the email, and then I can run with it from there? Because obviously I don't have any credibility with her yet. So, and I know that she can use what I have, and I need her too. She just doesn't know it yet. And so, like 80% of the time, man, it's not a cold call. It's lining up, through your relationship tree, because you took time to show a true interest 3 years ago in Joe Jabibbi. He's going to help you out with Sally Sweetlips. So then he does the virtual intro, And then, you give it 8 minutes because she read it, and then you call her,
Yeah.
hey, when would be a good time, man? Just give me 10 minutes, bro. Like, and if you don't like me, I get it. But, Joe Jabibbi's been using me for 3 years. I've got 14 contractors with him at 3 different military bases around the country. And he wouldn't have referred me to you if I was a bum. And
Yeah.
so, and before you know it, once you've been doing it like 27 years or whatever, it's very rare that it's just a cold call. You're opening up the phone book and you're making a call. It's just networking.
That's a great point. And for the record, these are fictitious names that Matt is making up. Really good stuff. So, but that's a good point. Okay. So I think a lot of times when we're new to recruiting, we're eager, we're anxious to get as many recs as we can. However, if you're focused maybe on like one company where you're getting some traction, maybe you talk to a hiring manager who even gives you an opportunity, a rec to work on, maybe you fill that rec. I've always felt like, hey, there could be so much more with this one company. Let's penetrate further and ask this hiring manager who I now have a relationship with. I've built trust with him or her, and there's a really good chance that they can navigate me through their org chart. So I think that's great. Like, don't get away from something that's working. If you can get 3 or 4 more placements within a company that you've already made one placement or have a relationship with, that's the way to go. And in addition to that, Matt, I remember a long time ago, Britt, your business partner, I don't know if you recall this or not, he had a great thing where you always want to ask 3 or 4 questions on every phone call. It was like, do you use contractors? Who else uses? Do you remember that adage? I forgot what it was, the questions, but
Ad nauseum. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us again what that was. It was really good stuff.
Yeah. So, everybody has a different selling technique, right? So some folks are real analytical. I myself, I just, I'm more of a relationship developer, and I know that they know what I do and I know what they do. And so I'm just trying to find that common thread on a common interest, and then try to expound upon it. But yeah, Britt always says, who can I talk to? Who else can I talk to? When's a good time to follow up? What are your current needs and what are your upcoming needs? And what would be a good time to call you? What day next week, so I can find out what's going on then. So like, he's a little bit more analytical with it,
Right.
and I'm not, but there's always 2 ways to skin a cat. So, and it's obviously it's worked out really well for him too. So
Yeah, but the bottom line is the strategy there is, for us here that are getting responses on LinkedIn, if someone connects with you, you're getting an email response from a cold email campaign, for example, like always keep the dialogue moving forward. Don't close it out. Don't say thank you, have a great day. Like there's so many more questions you can ask that
right.
prospect, right? So
yeah, absolutely. I very rarely will get off the telephone or a Teams call without takeaways or to-dos or next steps. It's not my DNA. So like if I talk to somebody for 15 minutes, I'm like, hey, I think we had a really good conversation. Are you going to be at the FCA golf tournament next Friday? I'd love to exchange cards with you, knowing that the guy's going to be there. And then you set up like a next time to talk, right?
Awesome.
Absolutely. But another big point though is, never stop the relationship with only one person at each client, right? So you want to be a weed in there, like a freaking chia pet that's on water, So who else can I speak to? So if that person leaves, of course it sucks that they leave, but the good news is that they're going to land somewhere else, and then you're going to follow the relationship there. But if 5 or 6 or 7 folks that are all in hiring manager roles, you'll always have a foothold in that client. On top of when they leave, you're breaking other accounts because of that relationship.
That's awesome. I've got one more question for you. I know we've got about 9 or 8 minutes here, and I'm going to open it up for some questions before I let you go. Matt, you're familiar with the term MPC, pretty universal term in staffing, right? Most placeable candidate.
Yeah.
So I love that strategy. Do you guys practice that? Meaning, like, do you encourage your recruiters when they're building their candidate pipeline, if they've got 1 or 2 phenomenal A-player candidates that fit in really well with some of your clients, do you guys often practice getting those profiles out to clients proactively?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because in our 2 verticals, right? Scientists and chemists and formulators, and then top secret clearance, enterprise IT folks, right? They're smaller communities, right? So if one of our recruiters is talking to a real good top secret clearance person, and that person just isn't good for our spot or won't relocate to Fort Huachuca or whatever, they absolutely market the hell out of them because, we're going to place that person or somebody else is, but that person's going to be placed in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and it might as well be us. So, we'll reach out to everybody that, that lives in Herndon, Virginia, that we work with, because this person won't relocate, and say, hey man, this guy's would be perfect for your structure, and then we get placements from that a lot.
That's awesome. I lied about my last question. So here it is, I promise.
That's okay.
What are you seeing with like the state of economy right now? I don't want to get too involved in politics or economics, but meaning, have things slowed down for you? Do you think going into 2023, there's going to be lots of opportunity for recruiters and agency recruiters? Like, what are you guys seeing right now?
Okay, here's the deal. I get asked that question all the time. So here's the deal. This industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? There's always going to be hiring, there's always going to be recruiting, and there's always going to be placements. So what you see as a trend in the industry is if the economy slows down, projects at these big companies still have to get done. Now, you'll probably see less perm placements. You'll probably see a little bit less temp to perms because the economy's not great. So companies don't know what they're going to do in 8 months from now. But the beautiful thing about a shitty economy is that they still have to get these big projects done. So they'll bring in 5, 6 guys for a 9-month contract. And so they're not going to want to hire those people perm off LinkedIn, because then they're going to have to pay unemployment tax. They're going to have to fire them. There's all kinds of shit that they have to do. They want to go through a recruiting agency. So they'll call us and they'll say, hey, we need 6 IT guys to be at Quantico, but we only have the budget for 10 months and we don't want to take them perm. So even a bad economy is good for recruiting. It's never going to go away. It's just going to look a little different.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I love it. All right. So let's see, guys, we've got about 6 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? We've got Matt here. Let's fire away. Let me start with Clarence. I know, Clarence, you always have good insight.
Yeah.
So Matt, Clarence is a newer member who's going after the blockchain crypto niche right now and getting some great traction, by the way. But go ahead, Clarence.
We just got LinkedIn yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I was in the defense industry, secret clearance. But anyway, so my question is regarding scaling. So yeah, like I have my first job order, so I'm brand new, but I have large ambitions. I want to scale at some point. Is there sort of I don't know if it's revenue or a formula where you say, okay, I've hit a certain point, I want to start adding on to the team besides being a solopreneur, so to speak.
Yeah. So if I understand what your question is, so the first thing, right, is to get the company out of debt. That took us a few years, right? Because all small businesses really have a little bit of debt. So, but once you get out of debt and you're looking to scale, the best advice I could give you, because I've lived through it, is hire really competent, really intelligent infrastructure. So what I mean by that is you can't scale if it's just you, right? That's obvious, right? So, you'll need a CFO, you'll need an operations person, you'll need an onboarding person, the person that does all the admin work when you're, bringing folks on. You're going to have a good payroll company. You're going to have a really good banking relationship, right? That you have that you know the folks by name. So that's how you scale it. So get out of debt, and then you overhire for infrastructure positions. It sucks at the beginning because you're not going to have a huge salary, but in the long run, in my opinion, that's how you scale it. So, right. So, we didn't start with $5 million of venture capital, or anything like that. We started out with 20 grand and a pipe dream, So we've never borrowed money except for payroll line. So, but now we have, we've got the CFO, a director of finance, we've got an accountant, we've got 6 people on our back office team. We call them the talent experience team. So we've got I used to be the COO, but I lost my job. We promoted somebody to COO. We promoted our CFO to CEO. So Britt lost his job. So the best advice I could give you, get out of debt, stay with a clear vision, work harder than everybody else, and hire really competent infrastructure positions as you continue to grow.
Awesome. Good stuff. Anybody else? Any questions? Anything? Let me see. You can write it in the chat here, or we've got 1 or 2 more minutes here. All right. If not, I want to thank you, Matt. That was, oh, wait, I think we have a question here. Hold on a second.
Parker Cheney.
Yeah, you see that. Yeah. Let's see. Typing a message. Okay. But Matt, I can't thank you enough. That was awesome insight. And I have this recorded, which I'm going to be sending out to the group here and everybody else who couldn't make it today. And, really appreciate you being here, Matt, and giving us some nuggets there.
Absolutely. And if any of your folks ever have questions or they want to throw something off a wall and get some feedback, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure, Russ, you can give my email and everything like that. So.
Yeah, thanks for making yourself available. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to keep you. If I get Parker's question, I'll hear how many open roles with actual quality companies should you have open before you hire help? I'm a one-man team, currently placing about 1 to 2 a month.
Okay, so my answer to that was I had a little bit different life experience from that because I went into it with a business partner and a couple of recruiters, right? So, but I would say as soon as you're working more than 60-hour weeks and you don't feel like you're getting enough calls in to fill the openings that you currently have, and the quality of candidate is either leveling off or going down a little, that's the point where you need to hire your first full-time recruiter.
Gotcha. Good stuff. Good advice.
Yep.
Parker, thanks for that question. All right, Matt, we'll let you go. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.